Good evening. My name's Joy Knudsen, and I am elected council member appointed to Public Works Committee. We are meeting this evening on January 10th, 2024 at Hudson City Hall. Public Works Committee is now in session. I would like to call the roll. First of all, Councilmember Mike Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Sarah Brook.
Here.
Perfect. Have our quorum of elected officials. I'd like to also introduce our staff with us tonight. On my left is Aaron Anderson McPhee, who is our city engineer. To my right is Mike Mraz, who is Director of Public Works and Parks. I often forget to put that word in. And as well as Deb Andrews, who is Executive Assistant of the Public Works Department. So thank you everyone for being here. We are going to first take a look at our minutes to see if there's any additions or changes from last meeting, from November 13th meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have accepted and approved those. We would have general citizen comments right now. However, we have a special guest that was invited to be here tonight that we're going to draw into our conversation in a few minutes. I don't see anyone else here that has a comment, but we do always allow this time period if anyone cares to bring up a question or a concern to our committee to highlight it to staff and elected officials. We always welcome that input. So tonight I'm going to take the liberty on our agenda to move our old business item up first. And so I would like to ask our Public Works Director, Mike Mraz, to give us an update on the Emerald Ash Borer policy, kind of a little bit of the history. Thank you, Mike, for including, it was interesting to read back that this policy initially was implemented in 2011. And, where we have gone in the recent years. So thank you.
Yep, so back, like you said, almost 12 years ago now, 13 years ago, City of Hudson was very proactive with Emerald Ash Borer. They had heard of it obviously through the DNR, and they got a jump start on the Emerald Ash Borer Readiness Program, which was included in your packet. In the readiness plan, it went over kind of the inventory of the existing ash trees. Kind of went over, what type of plan should the city put in place to combat Emerald Ash Borer, whether it's treatment, whether it's removals, so on and so forth. They kind of gave some dollar amounts to that. And so what we've been doing up to this point is obviously trying to follow that as much as possible. We've had to make some adjustments recently just because of the onset of Emerald Ash Borer in our community, which was back in 2018. When I first got here, I think it leaked to me as kind of a secret that, hey, Hudson has ash borer, FYI, and good luck to you. So it was kind of a rude awakening coming to the community. It's like, oh my gosh, it's actually here in the city. So since that time, we did kind of ramp up some of our removals, targeting small trees that were deemed hazardous, trees that were either underneath utility lines or over utility lines in the ground, so on and so forth. And we've done a very good job as far as managing our urban forest, specifically with the ash trees. We did start out with approximately 1,400 total ash trees in our community. That's either in the parks or the boulevards. And as we sit today, we are approximately around 400. So we've lost about 1,000 ash trees due to either removals, proactive removals, or storms. You have a lot of storm damage, obviously, the last couple of years, and we're finding that the ash tree population is very susceptible to the high winds just because of their brittle nature after they become infected. We did start out doing a lot of treatments. Since then, we've had to kind of pare back that just because of the sheer volume of removals that we're having to do now. We don't have the necessary funds to do treatment and removals, and seeing that the trees now are becoming more of a public safety hazard, we're having to kind of shift those funds to removals. So, and that will continue here in the next few years until we get all the trees down. Now, through this process, obviously the city's responsible for the trees in the boulevard. That's removal of the ash tree, that's stump grinding. We have the equipment to do it. It's just a matter of staff time to get to those stumps. And then we're also responsible for replanting. And so I know my predecessor, Tom Zuley, Did a very robust tree planting program with help from the Urban Forestry Board and groups like the Rotary, trying to reestablish our boulevard trees. And to this day, we try to, obviously, when we take down a tree, we're trying to plant a tree, so on and so forth. It's just come to that point where we become so inundated with removals just because there's just so many of ash trees that are dying now because we're on that kind of that beginning of the death curve that a lot of our funds are going towards removals right now. And so there's groups that we have partnered with in the past, including Daybreak Rotary, which is represented here tonight, where Urban Forestry Board has helped promote some of their programs for replanting trees in people's yards or in the boulevard. We do an annual Tree of the Year sale that's been very successful, where people can buy a tree at a reduced rate and plant it in their yard or in their boulevard to help try to offset some of the losses that we're seeing with the emerald ash borer. So, with that being said, I know that Daybreak Rotary is doing another tree sale program this year, and Dave Drewski is in the crowd tonight. So, I don't know if you want to bring him up and just maybe cover your program this fall and maybe this spring, and then obviously we may have to have a conversation soon as far as collaborating or partnering or supporting your program this year, much like we did in the past. So.
Sure. Would you mind coming to the mic? Sure. Thank you. Right over there at the podium. Thank you. Yes, I invited Dave Drisky to be here tonight because of his involvement. I know he's met with the Urban Forestry Board before in the past as well, and is just a real advocate for tree planting and maintaining our canopy. So, and I know you're planning a tree sale this spring, so why don't you bring us up to speed on what your Daybreak Rotary Club is planning?
Okay, about 6 years ago, Rotary International had a new president that challenged all Rotarians in the world to plant at least one tree. So we picked up on that and started a program. My wife was friends with the Baileys, and I grew up and coached the Shimmons boys. They were my neighbors and
Sure.
Through hockey. Anyway, and they've got Willow River Tree Service, so we kind of put a team together to provide trees. We think tree diversity is the only way to go. So for the last 5 years, we've made trees available to Rotarians, their friends and family, and we'd like to do that again. It's been a little bit surprising to me. We provide bare root trees, which are out of Bailey's Nursery, good quality trees. They're anywhere, depending on what you get, anywhere from 4 to 7 feet tall. Very easy to transport, easy to plant, and we make them available at cost to the to whoever orders them. We do it the last week of April, the first week of May, to coincide with both Earth Day and Arbor Day. And we have, through Tricia Christensen's help, put together a online order form, that's fillable so we can more easily tally. We've got orders placed for 5 different types of trees. There's a St. Croix elm, which is my personal favorite, developed right in Afton. There's a greenspire linden, a river birch clump, and then a couple smaller trees. One's a crabapple, a showy snow crabapple, and a Japanese lilac. So there's 5 trees. That order form is done. A couple things we added to it are the ability to donate a tree to a city park or a boulevard instead of just in someone's yard. So there's and I can make that form available to you. We just have a little bit of tweaking. It's essentially done. Logistics have been really screwed up since COVID, so we've got an order in, but we want to have orders placed by the end of March 8th, which is the end of the first week of March. That way, we can be assured of getting them. We do partner up with the high school, and we've planted 20 trees, to the north of the high school. We'll be involving high school students through the ag program. I haven't had the actual meeting yet, but I'm hoping that we can get some kids to plant some trees. We'll teach them how, and then, and I've actually even planted trees for some of our older Rotarians that couldn't quite do it, so.
Yeah, how long ago did we do that program with, was that 2 years ago?
2 years,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
a fun morning, educational, and kids got involved with planting and got a little dirty, so that's great.
And then, we put some by the main entrance sign.
Yep.
Down by Dairy Queen.
Yep.
We're just trying to do our part. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. I mean, there is a little effort involved in, getting out a spade, but if it takes you 20 minutes,
it's about
you've
it.
got tough site conditions. It's not hard.
Yeah.
But I think to the form, I'd like to add some maintenance tips, the watering, the mulching, eventual pruning. But I can tell you, those St. Croix elms, for every grandkid I have, we plant a tree. And some of those trees in 3 years are 20 feet tall, and,
Yeah.
5 inches in diameter. So they really grow.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good program. Guidelines for what tree to plant where.
Yeah, very important.
We'll be looking to include too, because you got to put a tree in the right place in
Yeah.
order for it to flourish.
Yep. And then for residents that are hearing this that want to plant a tree, maybe in their front yard or in their boulevard, the city does have a tree planting permit for those trees that want to be planted in the right of way. And it's an online form that an individual can fill out, and they submit back to my office, and we review it. And basically, we're making sure that it is the correct tree in the correct location, that they're not planting in the vision triangle or over the top of a water line, so on and so forth. So it's a good way to kind of have a little check and balance just to make sure that it's being planted correctly and in the correct location. So if an individual does want to replant a tree out in the front of the yard because they did lose an ash tree for some reason, that would be the process that they would go through.
Is that also the process if they're worried that they have a tree in their boulevard that has big, deep roots that are impacting sidewalks and that kind of stuff? If they wanted to pay to take that tree down, if they personally wanted to pay to take that tree down and plant something that's the same
They
route
would
they
reach
would
out
take?
to my office as well, and we would talk through that process. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that is a great option for people to know, because everyone is bemoaning the loss that we had last year. A lot of trees down, and that's one of the reasons, besides just a good update for our committee, to have people, our residents know what are their options, what are we doing. We're going to talk a little bit more about funding
Yeah.
here, but yes, I think that's a great idea that people, I love that, appreciate that the marking on the form that if someone wants to donate a tree, they'd like to contribute, but maybe they live in an apartment building or townhouse where they're not allowed to do that sort of.
I should mention that, these trees are priced between $25 and $35, so they should be within anybody's budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. It's a wonderful resource there. Did you have any other comments, Sarah? You're on the member of the Urban Forestry Board, so I know you've worked on Arbor Day in the past.
That's exciting. I hope the city gets lots donated so that we can plant those on our
Can I
next planting
make
like
one
that.
more unsolicited comment?
Please, yes.
You had that gravel bed.
We did, yep.
It's amazing what those roots do if you let them sit and let those roots develop.
Yep, yep, so the gravel bed was at the west shop. The water supply line that gave water to the gravel bed actually died, went kaput, so we had to remove it from there. We are looking to reinstall a gravel bed probably at Ward Avenue sometime this summer or fall, so that we can utilize that as well, because like Dave said, you can buy a tree at a reduced rate of $30 or $40, stick them in the gravel bed and they just flourish in there. And then you can go and take it, the employees can go in there and take them as time allows, where they have some open days, and take 5-10 trees and go get them planted. And it's really easy to move them around, and they got great root structure, so it is a very, very valuable tool that a city can use.
That would make it much more affordable for your routine replacements too.
Yeah, you
If we
compare,
can enhance their root structure and get them in the ground the next year.
Yep, and you compare a bare root tree that for $30, $40 versus a container tree that's $200. So you do the math, you get
Yeah.
5 trees for every one, so.
Yes.
How long can you hold them in that gravel pit?
You can hold them, we've held them until late October, early
Okay, so
November.
one season, but, okay.
Yeah, one season, we try to get
Probably,
them.
they probably have 4 times the root structure when they
Yeah.
come out of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
There are,
That's
there are
interesting,
communities that
yeah.
hold them over the winter. I've never done it personally, but they do, it can be done, yeah.
And not to put you on the spot, but off the top of your head, you love questions like that.
Yep.
With the storms and everything else down in, I'll say Lakefront Park for sure, but all the other parks, is there a number off the top of your head as we talk about people interested in donating?
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking for hundreds of replacements.
Well, the 2 storms alone last year, we lost approximately 200.
Okay.
Yep. That's just one storm last
Yeah,
year, right?
yeah.
And we're gonna be removing another 400 ash trees here within the next 3 to 4 years. So you can kind of do the math right there. So yeah, I mean, we'll take anything
Yeah.
and everything that we
That'd
can
be
get to
wonderful.
help offset.
Absolutely.
And if we do get 400 donated, which would be amazing, what about like staffing? Because I know it would need watering and kind
Yeah.
of nurturing and maintenance. Would that be?
Yeah, that is something to consider. Obviously, you gotta have enough horses in the stable, right, to do the work. And that's one thing where we don't wanna overextend ourselves and plant 200 trees all at one time, because there is the watering, the pruning, structural pruning that has to happen. They gotta really take care of them the first couple of years until they get established. So, once we do start replanting program or get some donations, we're definitely gonna wanna keep that in mind, so we're not overextending our staff. And that we're actually seeing the trees through so that they do. I've been in other communities where we do a mass planting, 200 trees all at one time. Well, then half of them die just because you can't take care of them, and it's just wasted time and labor.
That's
And-
tragic, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that here.
That's sad.
Yeah, I don't want to waste people's time. That's
Well,
good.
and I would like to have a little more discussion about that, but I know Dave is just here for a brief visit tonight, which I appreciate you coming. I do think, I know last year the city did sell some trees, were available through the Public Works Department, and basically picked them up on Arbor Day. You had them up at the East Garage or wherever it was available, and people picked them up maybe at Lakefront Park. That
Yep,
was the
Lakefront
rendezvous
Park.
point. But anyway, if everyone's amenable to it, working and collaborating together where we can help publicize what Rotary is doing and some of your manpower, or I don't know how this partnership could work, but I think we should definitely foster it, encourage it. I'd like to help publicize it. That's part of, I know Urban Forestry Board is meeting in February, and you typically select a tree of the year, is that correct? So it'll be up to the board. They may have different ideas, but whether they feel comfortable choosing something from this list, or else we might need to order in something different if something else was selected. So we'll have to see. Do you have any comments on that for us, Davis, about if any partnership here that you see
Yeah,
being
well,
beneficial?
you've got some real bench strength on the Urban Forestry Board, so I'm sure you'll be able to pick a perfectly good tree. But with Willow River Tree Service, Eric Shimon's a trained certified arborist. You can get some good advice from him. It's a great service they provide, for us, so.
Yeah.
And I should mention that this is anywhere within the school district, not just the city proper, but we really appreciate co-promotion on this.
Yes, I think that we'll definitely try to focus on that in the next. I think also one of the reasons for our discussion is to answer those questions to people in our neighborhoods, are like, well, all these stumps are here and when are they going to get ground up, and, replanting. So we'll continue that discussion a few more minutes tonight. But unless you have something else for us tonight, Dave, thank you for being
No,
here.
thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, safe
Thanks so
travels.
much for being here. Yeah, appreciate it. Well, to go further on that, I guess I had wanted to talk about it just as we think, we're 8-10 months from the next budget cycle, but I wondered if we, as a city, should appropriate more money towards removal. The replacement rate is certainly should be determined carefully. You know, can we get the healthy trees, get them in the ground, and can we maintain them? But I think we're going to see more and more of, you know, sort of a canopy loss or whatever it's called, where, you know, the tree is leafed out, but you're seeing, oh, 2 out of the 3 main trunks, limbs are, there's no leaves. And so people are going to really be noticing that more, ring-a-ding-ding, calling the city to ask about that. Unfortunately, any type of high wind event is going to, if it comes through a corridor where there's trees like that, you know, they're more likely to have that damage and destruction. We certainly saw a lot of that last year. So I know that's just food for thought. I don't know that there's anything specific to go forward tonight on that, though I guess one thing as far as professional staff to ask you, because I know you had said this, I mean, Mike, we have a designated forestry expert.
Yep.
And he has several people trained that work with them.
Yep.
For removing trees, and we also have stump grinding equipment. And did you say recently with the big push, they had like 100?
Yeah, they did 100 in the month of August. We
Yeah.
had seasonal help that were still with us, and they kind of got
Sure.
a system going, and they just went out and hammered it. You know, a lot of times, you know, you kind of have to go out a couple days ahead of time, locate it, mark where it needs to be located, calling the diggers. So, I mean, it's a process just to
Yes.
call in all 100 stumps to get located, right? And then they go out and do it. So, but to Joy's point about the budget, just for the public to be aware of, so the shade tree operating budget is its own budget within the Public Works Department. In 2024, our budget is $35,000. Okay, that's for, you know, any other contractual services or Emerald Ash Borer. I combined the two together, so it's about $35,000. A majority of that is going to go towards removals, okay? Earlier I said that we have 400 public ash trees that are remaining. Approximate cost to take down one ash tree is about $1,000. So if you do the math, it's about $400,000 of liability against the city for ash tree removals. We get $35,000 a year. So you can kind of do the math as far as how long this is going to take to do those removals. Now, obviously, staff does removals in-house as time allows, and we focus on the ones that are more manageable, ones that are very large and very conspicuous locations. You know, a lot of our historical downtown gets pretty tight. We'll bring in contractual outside help to take those down, just so we don't have the liability with those trees. But it's going to be something to keep in the back of your mind as we continue the budget process. I know CIP is going to be talked about this August and September, and maybe it's something where we allocate some funds in the CIP just to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and just start cutting down the ones that are really, really bad. Because as you drive around, you're gonna notice a lot of dead ash trees here now that we're kind of reaching that plateau, and it doesn't take long. It really spikes up. So just keep it in the back of your mind.
That $1,000, that's time for our staff to do that?
So
Does that include the grinding?
no, that's typically so when I say $1,000, it's if I contact, you know, a commercial contractor to come in and take down an ash tree, it's average about
Okay.
1,000 to 1,200, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Is that the stump too?
Nope.
Okay.
So
No.
those are bigger
That tree
trees.
is
Yeah.
Yeah.
$1,500.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, like from start to finish, right?
Yeah.
So that is
Nice.
significant expense for sure.
Yeah, 'cause
But we
the-
did, I mean, when you think back in this last calendar year, you had to apply twice
Yeah.
for disaster relief because of the significant damage when the storms came through. You know, it was a big ticket item, inconvenience. I mean, it's something to be thinking about. And I think as a council to decide, you know, do we just designate more?
Well, and of those roughly 400 that still need to come down, do you have a pulse on if 50% of them are ones that you're going to have to hire and 50% are ones that we can handle in-house?
That's a good question.
Because that could help from budgeting.
Yeah, I don't off the top of my head. We do still have some younger trees in like the Heritage Green subdivision. We have 30 of them that can get wiped out in 3 days. That is a great question. I'll get that information. I do know, like, what I will say about that is, so our removal program specifically for 2023 is, our 2024, excuse me. We are targeting those trees that are in very, very poor health condition, that have, you know, are kind of on their last, bark is starting to fall off of them. So we're kind of playing triage right now, where I'm sending my staff out and they're getting lists together, and they're like, okay, we have 2 on Laurel Loop, we have 1 on 9th Street, and those are the ones that we're kind of targeting. We're just kind of hopscotch. It's not super efficient, but I want to get those ones down on the ground, right? And that's going to kind of be how it's going to progress over the next couple of years.
Because as we're talking about budgeting and those sorts of things, something else to maybe put into consideration is what happened right before the holidays. A big tree whose roots got involved and caused issues for a resident, you know, budgeting for those sorts of things that
Yeah.
are in the boulevard, that are in the city.
Their city's responsibility.
City's
yeah.
responsibility.
Right,
Because maybe it's, anyways, just something as we're budgeting.
right.
Yes, and careful replanting, which now we have
Yes.
more technology.
Yep.
To know, you know, again.
Yeah.
don't-
And I think it's a great idea to think that a group of neighbors or an individual could plant a tree in their boulevard if they follow procedures. So if they're kind of anxious, boy, we'd like to get this going again in our neighborhood, not wait on the list that they could choose to,
Yeah.
so.
And I'm assuming that this, the Mighty Ash Borer, it's not an insurable event?
No.
Ag, locust?
No.
Yeah, you know, just one
Yeah, no, that's a good
Act of
question.
God.
I wish.
We could use the,
Yes, all the help we can get.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, any other comments on that? Thank you. That was under old business, so let's go back up to new business. And that first item, number 5A, is approved 2024 Public Works Committee meeting schedule. So we have that before you. Apologize for this necessary change here this week when we realized our traditional second Monday of the month was falling on a federal holiday, Martin Luther King birthday next week. So that's why we moved to this date on a Wednesday.
And just as March 11th happens to be like the school district spring break, so just something to factor in. I know I won't be available for that meeting.
Okay. Well, how would you, I mean, we have been amenable amongst ourselves to changing things. Would you like to, I mean, that's one just a few months away, so you already know, and you know that school schedule. How do you feel about that? Should we stick with our second Monday and adjust as needed, or how does the committee, how do the members want to proceed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm flexible. I'm doing some traveling for work that month, but, you know, if we can zoom in too, I can be
Sure.
very flexible. So if
Yeah.
if you want to bump it down the next week or move it up.
So if we, either the 4th, well, if we stick to Mondays, it looks like the 4th and 18th are council meetings. And I would be amenable to zooming in too. I just know I couldn't zoom in on that 11th.
Sure,
But I could zoom in on the 12th if people wanted to do that.
okay. Well, one thing I do want to certainly be cognizant of, I mean, there have been times when we have not had a meeting on a given month, but yes, we're gearing up for projects and bids and so on this spring. We are going to want to, you know, be available to approve things that the staff, I guess they can always leapfrog over our committee if they need to go, if our staff needs to bring things first to council, if we're not able to meet. But, I mean, maybe people want to consult their schedules as we get closer to that rather than, I mean, what's open to a motion? Yes, but thanks for the heads up on that for both of you. Sounds like that date is less than ideal.
Well, I'll move to approve the schedule as is with the caveat that we, March or any future ones,
Yeah.
if we have a conflict, we'll find a
Get it
better date. Yeah.
as agreeable as possible, absolutely.
And I will second that as well.
Okay, so we have a motion moved and seconded to accept this committee schedule, which we have used routinely in the past, with the acknowledgement that we'll work with each other to make it amenable when needed, especially in March. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next item on our agenda tonight is we're going to discuss the Vine Street, 2024 Vine Street Reconstruction Project update. And this is a project that we are hoping to be doing. It's definitely one that we'll be wanting to discuss regularly here and get going this spring, won't we? I think Erin McPhee Anderson, our city engineer, is going to take this topic.
Yes, so, yep, this project, we plan to reconstruct Vine from Wisconsin Street to just kind of getting close to Bella Rose development. So kind of that stretch between the high school and the YMCA. And, you know, we've kind of brought this as a project a little bit last minute, so we are just diving into the design. And we have attached a very preliminary concept layout based on, you know, the council has approved the, what's it called? Not the traffic calming, the other policy to,
Assessment? No.
no, for pedestrians, to accommodate multimodal transportation.
Bike and ped plan?
Or complete streets.
Complete streets, thank you. That's
Which
the word.
plan do you need
There's-
here? We got them all.
So this year, you know, we've passed the complete streets, so trying to be more pedestrian friendly, all modes of transportation as a priority here in Hudson. So was hoping not just to rehabilitate the deteriorating pavement, but to enhance the pedestrian accommodations. We also have heard a lot about the safety of the crossing, Vine Street at the YMCA at Diamond Drive. So just trying to accommodate pedestrians in a safer way at the uncontrolled intersections, so intersections that don't have like a stop sign on Vine or signal or anything. So taking all that into consideration, we have been working with SEH. We have on board to do the design plans for Vine. And so they have drawn these preliminary plans up. And I will just highlight a few things as we've been looking into the design. So the first part with our contract with SEH, they also did a traffic study. And so I have a preliminary traffic memo, so I'm just gonna be looking at that real quick to kind of hit the big points. But the study area, you know, they did a study, took existing traffic counts for all the turning movements and just the total volume on Vine Street at the three main intersections, so Vine and Spruce, Vine and Grandview, and Vine and Diamond. So in general, the AM and peak hours, so basically when the hour that the most traffic is going through all the intersections was 6:45 to 7:40 AM, which lines up with school. And then same, the PM was 3:15 to 4:15 PM, which again, when school gets out. So that's kind of when the busiest level of traffic is. And so we do have detailed counts on the full day of how many cars are turning at each intersection, how many pedestrians are crossing each leg of the intersection at certain hours of the day. So we have all that data. They compiled it and they evaluated what they call the level of service of the intersections. So the level of service is just a traffic term to highlight how well the intersection is functioning. So LOSA is like the best, all movements are free flowing, there's no delays. LOSF is, you know, very congested. So then there's a range in between. There's specific, you know, average vehicle delays of 20 to 30 seconds versus like 50 seconds. So it's kind of to the seconds for sometimes whether it jumps up to A or B. And so we evaluated the existing conditions. Then we looked at 2044 proposed conditions, and the proposed conditions evaluates proposed traffic. And Vine Street actually has had a declining traffic number over the years, but just to be conservative, we applied the minimum kind of WISDOT growth projection per year. So we did increase the traffic slightly, even though the existing trend is declining. And so the total average daily traffic going both directions is 7,200 vehicles. And in 2044, that's gonna be 7,800. So that's what we took into account with also like the pavement design, is the future 2044 year. So the difference, let's see, so they also evaluated crashes. So that's kind of interesting. A total of 16 crashes kind of along this section has happened in the last 5 years. And none of the crash rates at any of the intersections triggered the need for safety enhancements based on the calculated crash rates. And so that just means, you know, the crash rates aren't high enough to trigger kind of like an emergency situation that we need to really address this issue right away kind of thing. And actually, most of the crashes occurred at Grandview and Vine, the four-way stop.
So fender benders.
Yeah, yep, yeah, so there was, 2 head-on, 3 angle crashes, 5 rear-end crashes, so yeah, I'm kind of mostly rear-end, and yeah, so since that intersection gets congested and probably a lot of high school drivers, you know, probably doesn't help, so. The proposed conditions, we did look at removing a few of the right turn lanes at Spruce and Diamond Drive, since those are uncontrolled intersections, so there's no stop signs on Grandview. So in the proposed conditions, there was a level of service of A still at both intersections with the removal of those right turn lanes. So very minimal operational impact there. And then at Grandview Drive, obviously it's a four-way stop right now. The traffic operation is not ideal, so they did evaluate a two-way stop, but that's something the city's not gonna consider, so that's in the report right now, but it's something that would obviously make traffic congestion better, but something as far as safety and just turning now where the buses come off Grandview, and with pedestrians crossing, we felt like the four-way stop should stay. They did evaluate a roundabout, and that operationally also is better than the four-way stop. But again, because of the pedestrian crossings, it would be a mini roundabout, so you would not be able to fit the pedestrian flasher signals for pedestrian safety. So there's really no, SEH didn't recommend the roundabout for mostly the pedestrian reasons. I have numbers. It was interesting. So at the intersections, for the whole day, for pedestrians actually crossing Vine, so at Spruce, there was 19 pedestrians that crossed Vine. Grandview had 17, which that's the four-way stop. And then the YMCA had 46 pedestrians crossing Vine. Wow. So double the pedestrians are crossing Vine Street at Diamond versus Spruce. So, and that's the one that we've heard about concerns. So one of the things we really are pushing forward, trying to push forward with, is a pedestrian island at that intersection. And because there's still a good number of pedestrians crossing at Spruce, we are looking at a design to add the pedestrian island at Spruce as well. And that kind of also acts as a barrier for a little bit of traffic calming and presence of, you know, something's there, people are paying more attention for when people are crossing. So we are showing that in the design. One thing to note, at Diamond Drive, we are still evaluating this, but to add a pedestrian median, you do have to widen the road to the south, and there's an existing stormwater pond right there. So SEH is going to be evaluating, first of all, how much we would have to grade into the pond to bump everything to the south, and if that's even gonna work with the drainage capacity of the pond. If we are not able to widen to the south at that corner, we may not be able to have the pedestrian island there. The only other option would be to bump things to the north, and we have a lot of right-of-way and grading concerns along the YMCA to be able to do that. So we're very limited with right-of-way and grading at that specific intersection. And so that was one of the advantages of removing the right turn lanes as well. It presents less crossing distance for pedestrians, so they're not worrying about crossing. And then if we cannot have the pedestrian island, at least removing the right turn lane does still provide a less distance for a pedestrian to cross. Let's see. We did think about like an overhead flasher system at Diamond for pedestrian safety, but that's more for multi-lane highways, higher speed roads, so that wasn't really a feasible option for the cost of that. So we ruled out just keeping the flasher system that's there today. So that would just be salvaged and installed.
Could I ask you a question about that?
Yep.
Has that, because there is a, well, I don't know what the official name of it is, when the pedestrian can push a button.
Yes.
It's a flasher.
RRFB.
Pardon me?
RRFB.
FB, okay. There is one of those over on the YMCA in the
Yes,
professional
yep.
office building. But is it, and I've heard that discussion before, that it's not as clearly visible? Is it partly because there's a turn lane, and so that flasher is actually not in the eyesight as well as for the through traffic? They may not see that?
Yeah, that could absolutely be.
Is that one of the issues that is that partly why you were considering an overhead, or?
Well, the overhead, actually, it's called the Hawk system, so it's not even just a flashing, it actually displays a red stoplight.
Pedestrian activated?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's more like you're forcing cars to have to stop at a red light, basically, for a pedestrian. So it just has a different
Sure.
function.
Fairly
but-
costly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And we had a stop sign at that intersection at one time, didn't we try that? At the Y?
I think so. I mean, there's been various things
Middle of the
attempted.
road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, in the middle.
yeah, it was right in the middle.
That was before my time.
It was-
Yeah, Vine Street, there's had been various configurations, certainly there and elsewhere. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I was
no,
just
I-
curious
there's
about
a
that,
lot. So-
Because I had heard that comment that while there is a flasher there, it's
Yeah,
not as effective
yeah.
on the north side. And maybe, again, it's slightly out of
Yeah, I
eyesight.
definitely.
It is
yeah.
located behind the trail, and it is kind of tucked away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully too, so with the pedestrian, I think that kind of covers most things in like interesting parts and main topics of the traffic study. So I have a few comments, so it's not finalized yet, so I didn't want to distribute it, but
Okay.
we can, yeah, distribute that when it's finalized. So the pedestrian trail, we're looking at widening to 10 feet. That's the minimum multi-use path dimension that WISDOT basically recognizes as a multi-use trail. You can go down to 8 feet if you have specific constraints. And so we had them look at doing 10 feet, and right now it fits for the most part within the existing right-of-way. We are also able to add some boulevard space. The WISDOT Bicycle and Pedestrian Manual recommends 5 feet minimum for boulevard from face of curb to the edge of the shared use path, just as like a minimum distance between traveling vehicles and pedestrians. So we have put that in when we can. When it comes to constrained areas, typically at intersections, we've reduced it to 3-foot boulevard. So we still are pretty much able to get a boulevard, which also lends itself for like signage. So hopefully like the pedestrian signage, that could actually go in the boulevard area now. And that would also make it more visible than putting it, you know, on the other side of the trail. So that's the main trail. And then a few of the other topics, so there are, on the layout, you will see the trail outside of the right-of-way in a few locations, and we are going to hire SEH to try and do a few quitclaim deeds to actually have those property owners basically expand the road right-of-way to accommodate our new trail location. There are 2 parcels that we're doing that on. We haven't contacted them yet, but the existing trail basically already lies outside the existing right-of-way, so we're kind of hoping this is like almost more of a right-of-way cleanup situation versus, you know, we're not really proposing a lot more than what's already there today. Or we're already encroaching on the right-of-way, so the quitclaim deed is kind of a quicker right-of-way process. You have just a legal description, you just sign a form, and it's just a faster right-of-way process.
And did you say SEH is going to be?
Yep, SEH
So they'll
has,
work with the residents on that, or
we've hired their land surveyor to put together like the legal descriptions and things, and then our internal staff will probably have to talk about coordinating. We'll have to try to coordinate, I think, with the property owners, so
Okay.
I'm gonna talk to Mike Johnson about that,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I ask a couple of questions, please?
I'm going to recognize not just a resident, but a fellow council member is at the microphone. Yes, but Joyce, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. So the trail will be on the north side of the
Yes.
road, and
Yep.
so there you will need more right-of-way, but the south side, the only place that you're looking at changing the right-of-way would be right at Diamond Drive, is that correct?
Yeah, there's no right-of-way changes actually needed at Diamond, but
Oh, okay, so,
it still
but
works.
you're not planning to widen the road. So specifically, I had a question from a resident, so east of Grandview on the south side of Vine, they were concerned about whether or not something would further encroach into their yards, and doesn't
Yep.
sound like that's going to be the case.
Right now, we've left the curb line in the same location for the most part. There is, we do have it at the intersections where we've added the, pedestrian crossing, we are encroaching more on the south. So in general, the curb is in the same location. Part of that, we also looked at doing to see if costs ended up being an issue, we could just potentially do a spot curb and gutter replacement instead of a full replacement of the curb. So we wanted to kind of keep that in the same location. If down the line, the cost estimate ends up being too much and we need to pull back, that could be one way to do it. And right now, we are gonna show at least reconstructing all of it. In general, there was some thoughts like, oh, can we just shift everything to the south, to get the better pedestrian accommodations? And it's not as easy as that. I have actually, it must have been a different resident. When a resident saw the surveyors, they came to City Hall and were very concerned about the roadway moving, trees being lost. There's a lot more trees on that side that would have to go. Some of them, a lot of them are within the right of way, so we have the right to remove them, but I think losing a lot of that canopy for those homeowners would be a contentious topic.
Those are difficult issues, definitely.
Yeah.
It feels like their yard. It
Yep,
feels like
yeah.
they're trees, but they are actually in the right of way, and
Yep.
people don't even really know where the right of way is often.
Yep.
If I'm understanding, and I know you probably can provide us more as the project goes on, the design, well, let's just say I'm not the greatest at reading these, and this is a little hard to interpret because I think it's a drawing on
Yeah.
top of a satellite.
Yep.
Is that right? Okay. So I, maybe not reading it completely, but it looks to me like there's quite a bit more right-of-way available on the south side,
There is.
but the street is built the way it's built. And for us, to move further south, you could argue, well, maybe we should put a trail on the south side as well. That's an amenity there. I'm sure it was chosen to be on the north side because of, think of kids walking from the middle school to the high school. That connecting point, that is much more serviceable for young people walking, and, even though there's less right-of-way there. So anyway, thank you. I look forward to getting more detailed plans as they're available.
Yeah, there's a few spots where it looks like a lot, and then those will be the spots that maybe have a big slope on it. So if we were to add a sidewalk, we'd probably have to add a retaining wall along the entire stretch, So, and there's a few pinch points with the right-of-way too, so.
I still have a couple more questions, if that's all right.
Sure, go ahead, Joyce.
So you're calling this a trail rather than a sidewalk on the north side because of the width of it and because of the makeup. It's going to be asphalt rather than concrete. Is that correct?
Yep.
I had a question about the definition of a trail, and so it's a trail because of the width and the asphalt. Is there any other
I would say-
consideration that would call that a trail?
I think multi-use path, if we're assuming bicyclists and pedestrians are going on it, it's more of a multi-use path.
And then, because it's a trail rather than a sidewalk, then will the city be responsible for the snow removal on it?
Actually, the city already does snow removal on this section.
Oh, okay. So that'll just
Yep.
continue?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Do you have more that you want to say, or should we open up for more
Yep,
questions?
yeah, the striping, so I went over the right of way, so the layout, the striping on here was something we were still evaluating with SEH2, so, you know, we were looking at potentially other things instead of, Public Works has some concerns with the big striped medians, and so we are looking at maybe doing some other options. I don't know if it'll work, so we're still looking at that.
I saw the plan with all the crosshatching.
Yeah.
I darn near had a heart attack. I'm like, that'll take us like 2 weeks to paint.
Yeah.
So,
True, and to keep it.
Yeah.
That has been an
Yeah.
issue for us, hasn't it?
Yes.
Keeping things painted.
So, yeah, just looking at alternatives for some of that striping. And then, so also, we recently did receive some additional comments from the local, business owner. I think everyone was on the email.
Yep.
So it had some good talking points in it, and we've kind of been looking at some of the talking points that were brought up in that email, and if it's worth discussing anything at the moment.
I would just say, obviously, it's something that we'll continue to consider as we work through kind of this initial design phase. I do know that, Aaron, you kind of have planned maybe a possible open house sometime in February.
Yep.
We'll want to get more feedback from the public and make some, kind of last minute changes. But I think any type of conversation or what public are seeing out there, we're going to want that feedback and input, and we'll, try to make some alterations to the design, because obviously we want to make it safe for pedestrians, but we don't want to also choke down traffic. So there's kind of a fine line of balancing the best of both worlds. So.
Yeah.
Do any of you have a question for staff?
I've got a specific question on, if I'm reading this correctly, let me get my directions right. Going westbound on Vine, and then I'm gonna turn right into the YMCA. Let's say I'm gonna work out or something. This is just an example. It might happen. Anyway, so right now there is a right turn dedicated lane, and then this suggestion is remove that. And you know more than I, the rationale behind that, I'm thinking of that's probably, as you mentioned, the most crossed by pedestrians.
Yep.
But no stop sign. Is that, again, what's the reason for that? Is it to make the lanes more narrow,
Yep.
is it gonna hold more people up, taking a right into there?
No, so since like you said, there is no stop sign, it's a free flowing movement. So really, there's no operational negatives to that. So, you will have to slow down. So there is a potential for more rear end crashes without a dedicated right turn lane. But as Mike mentioned, it's a fine balance. We're doing our best to accommodate cars and now pedestrians, which we heard has been a priority. So reducing a whole lane really reduces the crossing distance that a pedestrian needs to cross the road.
Okay.
So that's one pedestrian benefit. And then there is some warrants as far as when you need a dedicated right turn lane, and our volumes actually didn't meet that. So there is a table that WISDOT has, so it kind of says, here's your right turning volume, here's the total through volume at the peak hour, so that's what you design for. Are you on this side of the graph or this side? And we're on the side that says you do not need a right turn bay.
Okay.
So I think the number is Yeah, during the peak PM, westbound traffic has 394 through vehicles and 76 right turning vehicles. Just to get a perspective
Okay.
on the number of vehicles
At
turning.
Diamond?
At Diamond.
Okay.
What's the threshold for?
It's a curve. So like if the 300, or so if 76 right turning vehicles, we would have to have over 800 through vehicles. So we have half that. So, I think it's something that was one of the concerns brought up. And I think it's definitely valid to consider, in this situation, we would have the right of way to put it back. This is a first draft as a conversation topic. So if, you guys feel you don't want to sacrifice the pedestrian improvement, for the vehicle improvement, but as far as like an engineered traffic study goes, it's not gonna cause like any huge delays or anything like that. So I think it is definitely a good discussion topic. We are showing the one at Spruce also being eliminated. That one has a lot less right turning vehicles, so I feel very good about eliminating the right turn lane from westbound Vine to Spruce. There was like 50 vehicles in the whole day turning.
The whole day.
So it's like, that's not very much.
And then I think it'd be remiss if we didn't mention the right turn lane into the First Presbyterian Church as well. We're looking to eliminate that one too, just because of, yeah.
Yeah, that turn lane is really small, so people kind of have to slow down before getting into it anyways, because it's so short. And we felt like the peak overall traffic is not going to happen when the peak church traffic happens.
Right.
So we didn't really feel like that was a safety concern.
Makes sense.
Well, and not to get ahead, because I know we're
Oh,
going to
no.
talk about, we're mixing the subjects up. But the interesting thing, we've talked about, I hate the word speed bump, but that table or whatever, which the crosswalk goes, it's a little bit elevated, so it gives you the physical going up. And that might be a great spot for it, because it's uncontrolled. And you mentioned it's a lot of people crossing there, and that's, the two schools to come together. To me, that's a tough intersection, whether you're going to the Y or not, or you're going to the high school and coming back. It's just, to me, that seems like something, that's the most important intersection, I think, of this whole
Would you
plan.
specify which one, I'm sorry, that you're talking about?
Vine and Diamond.
Vine and Diamond, okay, at the Y. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Because you're going to work out.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Once this project's finished.
Or just,
I'll feel safe going there.
Yeah.
just sit in the
Okay.
hot tub.
Councilmember Brooke, did you have any questions or comments?
I'm not
Okay.
at this time.
I just wanted to make one general question, and it'll probably come out or to talk and to us think philosophically, because you're right, the Complete Streets policy, I think, came out of the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. They worked on that, and council approved that this summer. And it's, it's aspirational. It sets goals for us of what we want and what we're thinking of as a community. And I think, obviously, this is a reconstruction project, or we have the funds. It's smart to think about the whole street as we're approaching it. I certainly agree with that. I do wonder, as we go forward, we have a lot of trails that have had like zero maintenance. They have never been even resurfaced, different parts of town. And it's quite costly, and unfortunately, they've degraded enough that we probably need to reconstruct them or mill and overlay or something, a little bit more effort there. And if every time we approach one of those, if we decide, well, we need to widen it to meet our standard that we're trying to aspire to, that WSDOT has set as a goal, then we're going to have fewer that we can maintain and fewer that we can put in. And so just knowing that we're a little bit behind the eight ball as a community with older streets, neighborhoods that don't have even a sidewalk, let alone a trail, I just want to caution us as we think about that we may not always be able to go to that desired 10-foot width, because it's money that we could spend elsewhere to add in a different street or another trail, or improve a trail, resurface it as needed. Again, Hudson is unique in a number of ways. We have to apply those goals and guidelines that we are working towards to our own situations. So that's just a general comment. So thank you for all the level of detail you've given to us. And so would SEH be present if there was a community or a engagement? Or
Yeah,
would
I
you
think
handle
they'd be
that?
open. We have said, like, in what they proposed to us, that they'll help prepare materials, we'll pretty much run it.
Sure.
But I'm sure they could have a staff person available.
Either way, thank you. I know we've worked with them extensively in the past. Okay, so that was discussion and update, so no vote. We're moving on to item 5C, which is update on the 11th Street project from Cooley Road to Wisconsin Street.
Aaron, do you want me to plug in and just kind of maybe
Yeah,
scroll
sure.
through so maybe the community
Yeah.
can see what?
Sure, that
what-
would be great, because
Okay.
there are some schematics
Yes.
or illustrations.
I will just say then, while you're plugging in, back to Vine Street.
Yeah.
Real quick. Some of the improvements do affect utilities quite a bit, some of the private utilities. So we will be having a private utility coordination this month. And so hopefully that might come into account, because sometimes moving power poles can be a big deal, moving other facilities. And so if that could throw a wrench in some of the design items, it's just something we will have to consider once we hear more from them on their relocation timelines for private utilities.
So you're going to work with the utility
Yes.
commission to see what they can do and what the cost would be? Is that a factor?
It's like private utilities, so like AT&T.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
thank
meeting,
you.
all the private utility companies will be having a meeting, and they'll see what kind of since they're in the right of way, they typically have to pay to relocate their
I see.
facilities if we're making
I
improvements.
see. Sure, and I know there's some retaining walls at various places along that stretch too, though maybe they're not going to be impacted.
Yeah.
Since you're moving into the street more than going north, you're
Right,
moving
yeah.
some of the
yeah.
amenities further south into the street.
Yeah,
One thing
so-
I did want to mention too, of course, is it is our goal that this project is implemented this summer.
Right.
And done in time for start of school. You know, that's a goal that we would like, because certainly it is a heavily trafficked street with buses and so on. So time is of the essence. I know there's a lot of decisions to be done. And as, just to refresh anyone in the public, the funding that we're utilizing had been planned to be spent in downtown Hudson on Commercial Street, where it's in need of quite a bit of reconstruction and utility work, I believe. But the project that it's adjacent there, private property, is not moving forward as quickly, and so we decided it was recommended by staff to redirect the money. So that was just happening early last summer. So we're crunching the design and thinking through all these factors into a shorter time period. But what would you say is the goal of when we would go out for bids? Yes.
March.
I'd like to have it, so
Yep.
there's some work to be done, so thank you,
Yes.
appreciate it, all the staff work. Are you ready, if you got something for us, Mike?
Okay,
You
perfect.
can walk through it and I'll kind of scroll down as
Okay.
you talk
So,
through it.
yes, the much anticipated 11th Street project we're finally going to be having the public involvement meeting. And so I'm just going to go over some things that staff internally has looked at, and then kind of where we're looking to present at the public open house meeting. So this one, we have MSA on board doing the design. So they put together all the typical sections that you'll see presented on the screen. And one of the factors, so the overall improvement is to fix the deterioration of 11th Street, and then second, to improve the pedestrian facilities. Currently, there's a striped lane on one side of the road for walkers and bikers, kids walking to school. And so we did get a grant from WISDOT to make improvements to the road and add pedestrian facilities. So the alternatives we looked at, are you just gonna kind of scroll through them? Should I go through each one?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate. So, first thing is the public informational meeting is scheduled for Tuesday at 5 o'clock at the fire hall. Letters have been sent out to all the adjacent residents, informing them of the meeting. We're looking for them to come and participate and give us their feedback. And then the second thing is this project is scheduled for construction in 2025. So we are still on track for that. Some of the design considerations that we decided upon are based on that construction schedule. You'll see some alternatives that are a lot wider and give more amenities and boulevard space. We decided to go against those just because if there's any right-of-way acquisitions with this project, it would possibly delay construction to 2026. So because it is an STP urban grant, there are certain processes that we need to follow through WISDOT, and one of them is any type of right-of-way acquisition really lengthens the process. And so it would push the project out 8 months and then so on and so forth. So with that being said, that's kind of the backdrop as Aaron kind of goes through some of these alternatives.
Yeah.
Will the meeting be recorded?
Not at this time, no.
So the alternatives we looked at, I really like how they laid out. So the existing typical section, if you just imagine from like back of curb to back of curb, is 37 feet. If you can kind of imagine the corridor in your head, there are a lot of steep slopes right off the back of curb. There's retaining walls going right up to the curb. There's a lot of constraints that make it harder to, I guess, widen the overall corridor. So some of the options, MSA was able to kind of do a preliminary look on how that would, how the grading impacts and things would affect the corridor. So we were able to do, you know, a pretty good analysis to rule out some of those alternatives.
So as you walk through these alternatives, so if you can see on your screen, there's like a gray line. My cursor is going over the top of it right now. So that, as we scroll through, that is the current width of what you see out there today. So as you kind of go through these alternatives, you kind of get an idea of how far outside the current width back to curb we have out there. So that's just an aside.
Yep.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
So the first alternative was a bike lane in each direction, 2 travel lanes, 2 sidewalks on the back of curb. I won't really go into the detail, just say what the alternatives we looked at. The second alternative was 2 travel lanes with keeping parking on one side and just sidewalk on the back of curb on one side. The third alternative was more of a road diet, so we eliminated the parking lane, have 2 lanes of travel, and then actually have boulevard space and sidewalk. And the advantages of having boulevard space, it provides that separation between traveling cars and pedestrians. It also provides room for snow storage for, you know, the sidewalk and the road. So kind of the alternative 3B, there's kind of 2 alternative 3. Instead of the 5-foot boulevard, 5-foot sidewalk, it's 3-foot boulevard, 8-foot trail. And then alternative 4 was 2 lanes, removing the parking, getting a 3-foot boulevard with 5-foot sidewalk on both sides. The 5th alternative would kind of keep the similar look to the corridor, except remove the parking lane on one of the sides, and then have sidewalk on one side. And then alternative 6 has 2 10-foot lanes with 2 4-foot urban paved shoulders and sidewalk on one side. So that urban paved shoulder is just essentially a buffer space. It's a space where bicycles could go, but we wouldn't stripe it as a bicycle lane. And so when we looked at all the limits of grading for all the alternatives, we really ruled out that it's not going to be feasible to put something on both sides.
Right.
So then we looked at, well, which side makes more sense? And really, when you look at all of the different encroachments, I guess, up to the existing street, really the west side really popped out as the best alternative. to limit impacts to residents and not have to worry about getting into any right-of-way temporary easements, which, like Mike said, would delay the project. So we looked at our bike ped plan, thought about the amount and type of users, thinking there's bikers, there's kids walking to school. We felt that the 8-foot multi-use trail was gonna be the best alternative. And it also, that a multi-use trail is what is in our existing city bike ped plan. So we felt like we're aligning with the bike ped plan, we're meeting the needs, of bikers and pedestrians, and we're staying within that existing curb to curb line, which that is the key to minimizing the right-of-way impacts. There may be some locations, there's, a few stretches where it's pretty flat, so we could actually get a little more boulevard space, or we actually are in talks with WISDOT because the original project was for sidewalk. And so mentioning doing a trail with the WISDOT funding, they would like to see a 10-foot trail unless we meet specific criteria for why a 10-foot trail cannot be achieved. So there's a whole list of items. And so we're kind of in a back and forth email right now with.
That goes to my point.
Yeah.
Do we have to do it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a goal, but if they are providing money towards the project.
Yes, yep.
They can say yes or no.
Yeah.
Whether we can.
Essentially, which one of the criteria is like limited right of way, so there was a specific list of items and we actually met quite a few of them, I feel like, for this corridor. So I feel safe that we could go with the 8-foot trail. There may be spots where we could actually have a 10-foot trail. So it'll just depend.
So that would be asphalt as opposed
Yes,
to
yep.
concrete?
Yes.
Okay.
And so another benefit we felt like with this option, the trail would be at the city cost, sidewalk would be subject to assessment. So we really felt like that was a big part of this one, is we would not be assessing the trail.
Residents?
There'll still will be assessments.
Okay.
For like curb and gutter and driveways,
But not for the trail?
but not for the actual trail.
And if it's a trail, does this Public Works shovel that in the winter then too?
We have talked about it, and we're going to commit to shoveling this stretch of trail.
Okay.
Prior Public Works Committee Chair member, Mr. Weber, always had a big push on trails and trail safety, especially during the winter time. And at a time there was discussion on the city taking over all the trails within the city and removing snow from them. It's something that we can certainly discuss in the future. It comes down to staff and equipment. But yeah, for the sake of this project, I think if it helps it go, it's something that I would be willing to look into.
And would there be parking on this?
No,
So the parking's gone? So-
parking is gone.
So do you want to tackle that one?
You
Erin?
can.
Okay, so obviously, we kind of settled on alternative 3 just based on the bike ped plan. It stays within the current right-of-way width. Obviously, like Sarah had said, that it does eliminate parking. All right, so that's something that we're going to want to get feedback from the public on. Do they want to see parking on the street? Okay, if they do, there are options to create parking bays on the east side of 11th Street within the right-of-way. So where areas allow, where there's flat ground, not encroachments of steep slopes or retaining walls, we would be able to put in like 2 or 3 car parking bays. So it's basically you would pull off on the shoulder and there'd be a bay. I was just leaving New Richmond, North 4th Street. We did a project up there and we had kind of a similar project where, the parking wasn't on the street. They were actually parking bays on the side of the street where a car would pull over and park. So if that is something that we hear back from the public that they really want, there is an option to supply parking throughout the corridor. Now, it's not going to be right in front of your house. You might have to be a mid-block down, but there will be an option possibly. And then if we hear outcry that we want parking in front of our house, then we kind of have to go back to the drawing board.
Okay.
So at this point, there is genuine input sought. It's not just, here's our design,
No,
it's
we
here's
wanna-
our thoughts and tell us what you think, the
Yep.
people who live there.
Yep.
So that's great. And it is nice, unfortunately, it's been quite a delay in getting the design going, but they will be able to participate in that.
Yep.
But that's helpful.
Yeah, so at the public open house, there'll be a handout, there'll be a comment sheet that people can mail in comments, they can email me or one of the contacts from MSA. There'll be a brief presentation kind of right at the beginning, so just a general overview. And the rest of the meeting will just kind of be open. We'll have some layouts with the design. We'll have typical sections. And we don't have information on cost estimating or the assessment, so that information, we won't be able to provide any specifics on at this point, but.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from our committee on it?
This is really helpful, and I look forward to the session next Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yes, I think.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I think adding the separation for the walking path, sidewalk / path, whatever we're gonna call it, is a great improvement on that street and something that's been
Yes.
needed.
Very much so.
And again, if I lived right there and I parked right there, you get used to that. So there might have to be some compromises to that, but, yeah, I think it's a great improvement rather than just, let's redo it the exact same way it is, because we need to bring more safety to that road.
I agree that will be good, and I don't think that many people park on the street. It might be partly because there is so much traffic, and, there's always been the safety and speed concerns that they have. Though, I mean, in the old days, parking your car at the curb was considered a traffic calming technique.
Yeah, that's
I'm gonna
Yes.
bring my son's junker over and, designate it on 17th Street. Anyway, people slow down because there's a parked car there supposedly, but anyway,
But, yeah.
good to get that input, and that's next Tuesday at the Fire Hall from 5 to 6 p.m., Tuesday, January 16th. Okay, we'll move on to our next item, new business, 5D, review traffic calming policy, a draft copy of our traffic calming policy.
Yeah, so
Are you
this is.
tired of talking here?
A little, no. Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
why I brought my water.
I don't know how many of you had a chance to see the discussion held in December. Public safety, you were present there and went over it, and I tried to watch it just to get a sense of what their questions and input were, and we'll have maybe a little different perspective, and maybe answer some questions from the Public Works plowing perspective, but let's go ahead if you want to go through the process.
Yeah, so like you said, I went through this in December at the public safety meeting on December 14th. So I'll try to do more of a brief overview, and then we can, talk about details. So the overall, I guess, process for the traffic calming policy will be someone submits an application, we collect data, we determine, do we feel like there is an actual speeding problem, or is it just a perceived problem? Then we will make a recommendation and do a temporary execution as feasible. So that was one of the bigger conversation topics in the Public Safety Committee meeting, is they really wanted to see a temporary solution implemented and reevaluate data to make sure it's actually doing what we said it would be doing. So I kind of threw that in there as more as something that we will do. There might be a few things that we can't really do temporarily, but things like bump outs or some things we can do with delineators, we'll probably have to purchase more delineators for certain scenarios. But that was kind of one of the bigger items from the public safety. So I kind of put that in there as more part of the official process. So if we feel like it's working, it's calming traffic, we've reviewed it at the Public Safety Committee meeting, they're on board with it, then we will go for neighborhood support. So we'll kind of already have our recommendation, then we'll just want to make sure the local residents that will actually be affected by the design are on board. That we have in here as 60% of the affected area must be in support of the traffic calming measure to move forward with it and do implementation. Once we get a petition signed with 60% supporting it, which is something the city would work at, getting those signatures from residents, then we would take it to the Public Works Committee. So that would be the final step. We've gone through all these processes. Now we come to the Public Works Committee to figure out how we can fund it.
Before you go on, so
Yes.
if you say city staff will help with the petition, go in more depth. Are you actually going to send that out and get signatures? Are you gonna, what does that look
I
like?
haven't thought about it in detail yet, but
Because I was thinking the
could-
resident who brought forward the concern.
I think it would be great if the resident can spearhead it. That would be awesome. A lot of, we guess we didn't want to put the burden on one resident to have to do that. So if they volunteer to do that, we'll let them do that. If someone's, I don't have time to do that, or I'm just, I'm an introvert.
Just thinking about it, the other
Yep.
thing that we could do is the city could draft a letter and send it out to the adjacent residents and say, there has been a request for a temporary or a traffic calming solution in your neighborhood. If you have any thoughts or comments on this, you have until X day, and give them like a 2-week period to respond. We could do it that way as well,
Yeah.
instead of
That maybe makes more
So I agree
sense.
with you. I don't want to encumber our staff having to go around and get signatures throughout the
Right.
community.
Yeah, and I definitely wasn't thinking I'm gonna go knocking on
Door to door.
doors.
Yeah, okay. No, you don't want to do that, Aaron?
No.
I got you. Yeah, I got you.
So I was definitely gonna be, we mail something to
Okay.
them, maybe we have something online, or they send something back, yeah.
Okay.
And
So
I think with that, I know we're still in the stage, but to carry Sarah's idea forward, I've gone to people who have an issue with whatever it has to be, and I've asked a few neighbors, and they say, I don't notice that, or I didn't even see that. So again, I just don't want it to be one person has an issue and then dumps that on your desk. So maybe this petition needs support of 2 or 3, maybe not the whole 65% or whatever your number was.
Yep.
But just so we're not, because
To
part of
even
this
go
is
and collect data, you're saying, even at the very beginning?
I guess it depends. If it's just a speed thing and that's not building and pouring cement, whatever, maybe that's a lower threshold. But again, I think part of this of having a measurable, systematic way of going at it without just, every time the phone rings, let's send someone over there, check it out. And maybe it's one person has an issue or one speeder that had that one fast day that they were driving. I think if we don't build in that buffer a little bit, that certainly everyone's welcome to call and say, I've got an issue with a speeder or what have you, people driving on the shoulder, whatever it is. But I'm kind of with you that some of that has to go on the surrounding community. I think so. Just to protect you guys. Otherwise,
Right.
we're not moving the ball forward. We're just reacting to every single incident, and we're gonna start having you mail letters and
Yeah.
that just seems like a lot of.
If
That's
I could-
actually taking on
yeah.
more of a burden than what we do right now.
If I could point to, so on our agenda, page 18 of 75, it's the application process, step 1, step 2, we've got the blocks. For example, it says applications reviewed and data collected based on the order they are received. I think that list should be kept private in City Hall, so people don't know, like, well, I'm first on the list, or I was here first.
Yeah.
For one, the staff, police department knows where complaints have come and where they've seen issues, and may say, again, well, maybe we just did a traffic study 18 months ago before this policy was implemented, that the staff will determine, based on urgency, crash
Yeah.
records, yes, this is definitely showing up as, so that can be at your discretion.
Yeah.
That order, but you're right, just because I call and initiate this process doesn't mean that we're going to have it implemented the next week or even the next month. It may be a time period. But the thing that I like about the policy, or what I wanted to see achieved, is that residents know what to do if they're concerned. If they think it's unsafe in their neighborhood or people aren't stopping at the stop sign, they're not yielding property, whatever it might be, going too fast, school hours, that they know we have a process of how you would bring it forward, it would be brought to staff, and then the results are shared and they're available for people, and that they know that we're responsive, we're listening, we're trying to figure out problems. Sarah Brooke?
I was noticing, I know we were talking about affected areas and petitions, but just before that is the speeding criteria, so that's on page 2 of the policy. One of the things that I have heard is like a consistent, how long do you have that box out there taking speed? So I wondered if something like that needed to be spelled out so that the resident knows, okay, it's going to be there for 7 days, so it's going to have a weekend and 5 business days, just so there's.
Yeah, because there's a perception like, oh, it wasn't out there long
Yeah.
enough, or yeah.
Yes.
It was only out there 2 days.
And so it's the same for every single one.
Yeah.
Sure, and the fact that hopefully we're using sort of the black box technique so that they
Right.
don't know. I don't know, did we
The
just?
armadillos,
We
yes.
purchased some new technology.
Yep.
That was our COVID rescue funds, ARPA funding that we designated last fall to purchase some of the equipment to help do this monitoring and data collecting. So that's a good point. And under speeding criteria also, I think it might be helpful to explain what the 85th percentile in, maybe layman's terms, a different way of explaining it too.
Sure,
In
just
other
put
words,
more of a description
More of a
in here.
description of what
Yeah.
that means for people, that if they don't understand that concept. My one comment about the 85th percentile of speed over 30 miles or 5 miles over the speed limit, I'm not sure that our police department is ticketing at 5 miles an hour. If we asked them to, or we had an area that we were concerned, they might. But I mean, I know public safety has had that discussion with the police chief several times on, they're very busy. Our officers are very busy. And at what point do we want them to start ticketing people? It's partly at our direction, I think.
Right, because I
Elected
think they
officials.
talked about what the police association recommends, and that's what they follow, if I
Yes,
remember
I think it might be
correctly.
closer to 7 miles over the speed
10,
limit, but I don't know.
was thinking 10. I
Is it
think I
10, do you
heard
think?
10.
Okay. So, but nonetheless, this is a fair measurement. It may be,
I just I went like this.
I know,
'cause
I know, well, yeah.
I don't think he wanted to articulate
No, I don't
exactly
think
where
so.
that is, so that
That's on the
the
down
public
low.
isn't aware of what the
right, it's on the
limit
down
is.
low, but
1 mile per hour over, they're getting a ticket.
according to the state of Wisconsin, 1 mile over is speeding. Exactly, and they have that discretion, of course. And, that may come to pass as a result. In my several years on the council, the traffic studies that I've seen, a lot of times people are surprised. Most people are driving the speed limit. There's a few outliers, and it might be a very annoying time of the day and seems so inappropriate, but a lot of times people are actually within the speed limit. That's important information to people in the neighborhood and the residents to hear. But I certainly think, and hopefully we're putting a lot of energy into this, and you will be with the data along with the police department, that they will step up some enforcement and visibility in those neighborhoods where there's been that perception, enough of a perception that they're speeding and so on. So they're listening, they know, the chief knows what areas have been of concern. So that was one point that I had, Aaron, for you as our city engineer, if this is increasing your workload too much. I know you're the
Well, I
traffic
think
specialist,
it will
but-
depend on how many applications we get.
Okay.
I think the process, it will be similar maybe to what we already do, so I don't know if I don't feel too stressful about it, especially since, we're kind of saying as staff can get to it, so
Okay.
we're not committing to any timeframes. And I do really like the application is just a very good way, like what is the actual problem and what are they requesting? Because a lot of the time so far what I've seen is, they have a complaint, but you don't really know what they want or, what they think, so I think the application part will like really help on our end, kind of narrowing down what the concerns are. And then as far as the criteria go, I think at the Public Safety Committee meeting, we talked about this being a little bit of a living document, I guess, like any policy. If something's not working, we can amend it. So this isn't going to be chiseled in stone.
And is a stop sign not
Yeah,
a
so,
tool?
yes,
I just didn't see
yes.
that measure.
A stop sign is not a traffic calming tool that we do actually have. It's at the bottom of the application. I could put more detail about it, I guess, in the actual text language. But basically, the city, we actually do have a separate stop and yield sign policy. Yes. So I don't know if it's on the website, but I do plan, we actually have an engineering department link now on the website, so I plan on I'd add stuff about this. It'll be a lot easier to maybe see some of these policies. So the stop and yield sign is a specific separate topic that has its own policy already. So it's just generally not looked at as really a traffic calming measure for multiple reasons. So that's just not part of our toolbox. Yeah, so this is, like I said, a living document if something's not working or specific to the traffic or the public safety meeting. I actually had the vehicle and pedestrian crash history was a little bit more specific. And there was concerns like, is there really ever like 3 crashes in a year at a location? So I made that a little more vague to give us a little more discretion on just, has there been crash history as far as like the speeding criteria. And then, yeah, so the process, I guess, I don't know if you guys want on the application, do you think it is worth putting like you need a second signature from a second address, or we get the applications, if we just get to them as the order they are received? And
Yeah, I think you need the threshold to be a little bit, we're a community, we're all in this together, right? But just to prevent one person from having a bad day and seeing one car go by, that could start such a snowball of work, not just for you, but then you have to pull Mike into it, and then,
Sure.
so, I don't know, is it the neighbor to your left and the neighbor to the right? And if if your neighbors are far, far away, maybe there can be exception to that, but, maybe yourself and 2 other neighbors, so three addresses need to be on that for it to be a true concern. Again, the door's always open for someone to call City Hall and say, I've got an issue, can you help me with it? That's what we're here for. But again, I don't want to provide tools and people say, let me start digging in the toolbox for you. It needs to be controlled on this end. So that's my opinion.
And so will this form, just kind of piggybacking on that, this will be an online form that they print and mail in?
well,
or can
no,
they
so
submit it?
actually, yeah, that's a good point, which it is going to be an online form. So I've had Nick, our GIS staff person, we have an online web application that you just type it like you would fill out a survey online, and you can actually push submit online. We get notified, we track them. So as far as like multiple people, I think someone could still put in multiple addresses, and maybe just one person has to sign
3
it or
sponsors
something. Yeah.
Sure.
Or main
Yeah.
person, 2 sponsors or something.
Maybe address and phone numbers, so that.
Yeah, like you
that's
have to
some
list 3,
credibility.
yeah, like, yeah.
I think it's a way of balancing out that, yes, we list the traffic calming toolbox, and I like the schematics that you provided, and that'd be nice to have that on the city website so people can see ideas. Some people could just take, check, I want all of these, we need to slow things down in my neighborhood, and like you said, one person kicks it off, this makes someone talk to their neighbors, what do you think about it? We're going to have to get neighborhood support if a traffic calming attempt or policy is implemented. They're going to have support anyway. So, I see your recommendation there. I like your thinking, Mike, on that. That let's think it through. I don't know if the average resident knows how to check what they want. That'll be interesting to see how that goes. So I don't
Only
want to.
check 3, that's what
Yes,
we put
that's
on.
true.
Not all of them.
Because they don't necessarily know the rules and so on, but again, we can see how that form works.
Right.
If it opens Pandora's box as well as the toolbox, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, I think one, again, we'd need the public safety and whatever, but as we talk about this toolbox, we've used that word for, a year or two now. But I do think that police writing tickets should be a tool in the toolbox.
Yep.
And I don't know if that needs to be another checkbox on there. And I don't want
Increase-
people to think that this is à la carte, like I want a little bit of police and a
Right.
little bit of pump outs and whatever. But that's also a message too, that we're trying to run a city, and we're trying to run this part of the city, and we're trying to respond as best we can to safety issues and probably noise issue, everything else that comes with speeding and traffic. However, there's only so much we can do. If someone wants to go 100 miles an hour down the street, nobody's gonna stop them. A bump out, a sign, whatever. So I like how this is put together, where we're gonna do whatever we can to help, but sometimes we can't help. We can't help in every instance. We're not gonna solve every problem just because you filled out a form. I wish it were so.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, I think I put in a quick sentence, sometimes educational and enforcement may be the best solution.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's an interesting thought to put it as like an actual, maybe that is all someone wants. And I think it's gonna be hard to, I guess I won't speak for Jeff, but as far as the outcome goes, I don't know if they'll ever be able to say, oh, well, we'll be there once a week now, or,
Right.
as far as putting it on a checkbox, I don't know how we would.
Right, we don't wanna commit to.
Evaluate did
But-
it happen or not, but, right.
Yeah,
But
and
I-
then
people appreciate the presence.
Yeah,
If they
oh,
see
yeah.
an officer in the neighborhood
Yeah.
sitting there watching, they do appreciate that.
Some things too, like the city of Minneapolis, they actually have like a temporary, the speed trailer. They have like a whole, you can just request a speed trailer to be put on your block, and they put them out for a week and then they go away, and that's like another tool that they have because they get so many requests, and
Yeah.
that doesn't really fix, I guess, permanent concerns, and I don't know if a lot of our requests we've gotten that would really make people happy, but that's another option
Well, that's a
too,
tool
to
that we-
have like
Yeah.
someone
a
requests
rotation.
the speed display sign and we put it up until we get another request.
Oh, and the police department have been responsive to that. They have been doing that in the
Yeah.
Yeah,
last couple of years.
yeah.
And again, that's partly why we wanted to purchase more equipment, because again, people do appreciate that. And, having something pop up in the neighborhood, it does probably get people's attention.
Just a thought. So level setting with the residents when they file their concern. So before I got involved with city council, I would know that these would cost money. I would know that. But I wouldn't necessarily understand the budgeting and how long it would take for something to actually go into effect. How are we going to manage expectations so that they understand if this gets approved,
It might be.
we just started budget cycle, so, we're looking the next year.
Yeah, and some of
Unless
these,
it's an
some of these
emergency.
items are big ticket items when you talk about bump outs or
Yeah.
meeting refuge islands. That's thousands and thousands of dollars
Right.
that we don't have in our operating budget.
Right, we won't have it.
Right.
Those are CIP items. Well, CIP is done every 2 years.
Right, so it could be,
Well, and a lot of those will have to wait until the street is redone.
Yeah.
Correct, which is, who knows, that is a delay, certainly. But I think that's an excellent point, and that's, your wording, manage expectations, is exactly what I was trying to say about that list at the bottom. That if they're thinking, oh, I would like this, boy, I think.
Just
my
because they
street-
check, it doesn't mean it's going to
Right,
show
that's
up months
even
later.
a remote
Right.
possibility, but anyway, go ahead, Joyce, did you have another comment?
Yes, thank you. To Mike's point about having more than one person sending information in, I think that it's also good just to have one person so that we're just aware of these areas and we can kind of monitor things and see if there are some clusters and things like that. So I don't know that we want to restrict it. We might not be able to get to something. So maybe instead of having them taken in the order that they come in, that maybe there needs to be some triage or something like that. And then another question that I've got is, will all of this data be accessible to the council members so that we can take a look at them and see if there are things that we want to make sure that the Public Safety Committee takes a look at, or the council takes a look at?
Yeah, like something, like right, when we get the data, the speed counters do have like a nice PDF form it spits out with the traffic data. We can easily share crash data, like that all stuff, it would all be easy to share.
Well, it would just be handy
When and how, yeah.
to be able to see the applications as they come in, so that
Oh.
we're aware of areas that may need attention.
And maybe you just email that district
what I was
representative,
thinking,
maybe?
district,
Because
yeah.
I'm sure, Mike, as much as you love living in Hudson, you probably don't care what's happening down on First Street.
I don't
very
care
much.
at all.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that,
But yeah,
Or
not
send
to
it-
make more, but yeah. to
Put more
focus
on your-
so you
put
know
more
what's
on
going
your
on in
emails.
your area.
Right.
Well, but send it to public safety, because
Public
public
safety makes
safety would probably be the first place that things would be.
Public safety plus the district
district.
representative,
Yeah, that makes
or
sense.
person might be.
That makes sense.
Interesting point.
This is what's nice about the online application. I would have to talk to Nick, but he can put multiple email addresses for who gets notified when someone submits something. So if there's, it just goes to all of the council members, or just the chair of the public safety, or we can have it, that them go directly to multiple people. Yeah.
Okay.
something to consider.
I just wanted to ask Mike to chime in a little bit on any of these items in the toolbox, and because the question has come up, well, how will that affect plowing and things like that? Bump outs, even when we were just talking about 11th Street, having a little parking bay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about raised crosswalks?
Yeah, it's a conversation that Aaron and I have had. I would like to exhaust other options before we start putting in speed humps throughout the community. There are, the speed tables, crosswalk tables, where it's more of a gradual thing. I'm just thinking as my crew, obviously, we're adding streets. We're being asked to plow them faster, get them cleared faster, and anytime that we have to slow down, obviously it just takes more time for us to plow the streets. So just something to be cognizant of as we start implementing some of these things.
So it's a concern.
A polite way of saying it, yes.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
But I do see, it does say speed bumps are not considered an option.
Right, that is true. We're trying to go away from that.
Yep.
So, okay,
Well, to-
thank you.
Sorry, not to continue this on, but manage expectations, I love that term. Devil's advocate, we have a list here where we say, pick up to 3 or whatever you feel might be more effective. I mean, I want people to have a role in this, and they might know the best solution because we don't live on that same block or whatever. However, we are offering them almost, 3 or 4 steps into our toolbox, and then saying, well, whatever you say, we're gonna make a decision based on what we say.
Right.
I wonder if that's almost open the door
Counterintuitive,
too
yeah.
much.
Takeaway.
counterintuitive.
It's a takeaway.
I mean, even say, well, I think you have a description in there. I think give them time to say there's every morning before high school, 12 cars blow through here at 80 miles an hour. There we go. Now we can work with that.
Right.
But to the point of, hey, I checked bump out and I don't see one.
So maybe it's just even like, these are options that the city will explore, so they don't necessarily get to check, just
Yeah.
a listing.
Yeah, because I think if you are interested and you could flip through, I mean, I don't know how much we're gonna have on this page, but maybe if they want to dig in and say there's a Central Island option, a choker, a police car writing tickets, whatever, so they know what we're kind of working with. But I feel like if I check a box, I'm gonna get something from that. That's what I wanted.
And to Joy's point earlier, a lot of these things obviously are in the MUTCD, Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and there are warrants for some of these items, and we need to meet those warrants in order to install them. So that is something that is internally as staff, as traffic engineers, that, we're going to recommend. And in some situations, a bump out isn't meeting a
Viable.
warrant, or a pedestrian refuge island, or so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
I agree, and Joy brought that up earlier.
So
Yeah, we
that's-
could just
that's for
eliminate.
discussion, right.
And we wouldn't even have the list, or, maybe we have a note like, potential solutions, go to this document or something. Just have more space to write description and, or even have, what do you feel, do you think don't even ask what people would feel is effective and.
What did public safety say about that? Did they
They
mention
didn't say
about
anything
that?
specific about that.
That is a good point, Mike.
I do think it sets us up to be saying no right away.
Yeah.
Right,
Instead of,
yeah.
what we want to be is we're responsive to you, we're listening, and we are going to do a study to see what the situation is. Again, maybe it could be phrased, prompting more questions about what they see and when, what kind of behavior, rush hour. I mean, I know you already have times of the day and so on. But yeah, I was a little concerned that it might set up expectations that they get to select an idea and, boy, this might work out. And then, well, the city said no to it. It may turn
Right.
that they don't qualify for any, but they will have some more information and we will too. And again, we have enforcement and asking our law enforcement team to be out watching, controlling speed. Well, any other comments here? We're heading towards our world's record length of meetings. Sorry.
I did
Yes,
think of one
please.
more thing that
Please.
I want to be
Oh, absolutely.
protective of you and our city staff, as well as our residents. Could there maybe be a comment in, okay, so we've received it, we'll do the study, and we'll communicate, findings within, a certain number of days, or, I don't want to say days, but, you can expect follow-up from us within 90 days, or, or
Okay,
3
yeah.
months, something,
You
because I
want
think
the
citizens are going to want something like, okay, I filed
Right.
this, I know you're doing the study, and then what's next?
And the communication might be, well, we're going to do this study when school starts.
Right.
Maybe they're complaining
Yeah.
in April, and it's
Right.
like, well, we've decided to wait until the
Right.
fall, but they at least hear back
Yeah,
from the staff.
yeah, and I thought if you spelled it out there, that could save people reaching out to
Yeah.
you, saying what's,
Constantly, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, where's it
I
at?
filed my,
Yeah.
Yeah, I filed my report
request.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, some
yeah,
sort of
I filed it
communication.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Why aren't the
Yeah, where's
speed
the
bumps
speed
there?
bumps?
Sure.
No, I like that, and I think, I've used that in my business where someone takes the time to put this together and I send it in, and then it's silence. Do I call back in a week or 3 weeks? And again, now I'm trying to save you work, but maybe making more work. But getting that instant response, thank you for sending this in, we've
Yeah.
received it. The next 4 steps are we'll review it based on weather, season, whatever. So maybe not promising a 30-day clock
Right.
starting for them, but we have received it and thank you. But now here's the channels it's gonna go through. Because I think people would say, there, my city listened to me, they're on it. Nothing happens as fast as you want it, we all know that. But it allows them to, if you have a super busy Monday, you can put that off till Tuesday, because none of these are a one-time thing. If it's a one-time speeding incident,
Yeah.
that's not gonna warrant it. It's gonna be an ongoing thing, but give you a chance to channel it the right way, to talk to who you have to or whatever. So, I like that idea of getting, thank you for sending this in, and here's our next steps as a city.
And it might also warrant a comment that hopefully you and your neighbors will not know when the traffic study's being taken.
Right.
It's meant to
Well,
be
right,
kind of
we-
anonymous.
Right.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, oh, when did you do that? I never saw, it's like,
Right.
that was the point of it. That
Right.
we want to get their true natural speeding, not people are slowing down. Those flashing signs
Right.
are effective because they slow people down, but the recorded from the armadillo system that catches people and they're not aware
Right.
that they're being they're on radar, they're being detected. So those are good points.
Yep.
Good feedback. Again, we
Yes.
kind of fine-tune this, hopefully not creating a lot of burden for staff, but again, allowing our residents to know we're trying to respond to their concerns, move forward. So, all right, and I believe since public safety has already discussed this, and now we've had a good discussion, it'll probably appear on the council agenda sometime soon. for further discussion and perhaps passage. So we have already taken up old business since we did have a visit here from Dave Driscoll earlier. So we've already covered the Emerald Ash Borer update. So our last item is the project update refuse and recycling contract, which you have begun to undertake evaluating.
Yep, so based on the conversation at our last meeting, I did reach out to Republic, who is a very large provider in the metro area. Had a phone conversation with them last week, and they provide a lot of the similar services that Waste Management provides us currently. And so I think based on that phone conversation and based on Sarah's comments, I think it's worthwhile for staff to proceed with an RFP. It's just showing our community that we're doing due diligence on our side to make sure that we're getting the best available price and best available product for our citizens. So I will be putting that together probably between now and the next meeting. I'll have it on the next meeting's agenda where you can make any changes or any additions that you want to see on there. And then I'll email that or send that out to providers. So just want to give you an update on that.
And one of those areas will be composting,
Organics.
organics.
So
Perfect.
we're going to request, are they
gonna-
able, to find out, are they able to
Yes.
provide that and what would the cost be?
Correct.
Exactly.
Any options there, because that has been mentioned. Great, and so our current contract with, it was originally with Advanced Disposal. That company was purchased by or taken over by Waste Management, and that goes through the end of 2024? Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
So we've got a 10, 11-month window here.
Yep.
But good to be working on it, so thank you for that. We'll have
Huge
it on the
thank you.
agenda again
A
soon.
big thank you.
Great. Okay, then, moving on, communications or items for future agenda. Anyone else have something they wanted to bring forward?
Move to
Okay.
adjourn?
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We're adjourned.